Hey guys, it's Dorr with Tactical Hyve. In today's video, I'm going to be talking more about battle belts. On a previous video, we talked about the battle belts that I used. You know, when it comes to what goes on your belt, what goes on your person, you know, it's kind of a gray area between first and second line, so we're going to get into it. Up next. Hey, today's video is brought to us by the Sonoran Desert Institute. If you like working on your own equipment, you know, tinkering with guns, etc., highly suggest checking them out. They're a great resource for education and just bringing that capability up to the next level and then some. Hey, check them out in the description below, and let's get into it. All right, guys, so again, the battle belts. Beat the dead horse here. We've talked a little bit about what we use throughout our careers, both Coach and I, but I want to go a little bit deeper into it and a little bit more of the how and the why and which configuration I would pick for which type of operation. So in no particular order, I've got a Maritime loadout, which is on the pants here, and it's minimalist. I have it directly onto a rigger's belt, which is looped onto the pants because I want to be as streamlined and as thin as possible when working in a tight, cramped conditions of ships, gas and oil platforms, etc. But there's some unique stuff on here. Case in point, basically the water wings, you know, these have CO2 canisters inside of them, similar to any BB or pellet gun. And you go ahead and just pull these actuators and they pop up underneath your armpits. They're great to have when you're sinking under the tremendous weight of all your other equipment, but I have them directly on the belt. They're not going anywhere. So I decided I just put other stuff on the belt as well because I'm only gonna wear one belt, if that makes sense. I've got the blowout kit on here. This one's actually empty. I pulled the stuff out for range use if need be, but it's ambidextrous. You can get to it with both hands. It comes out very easily. Highly recommend these types of blowout kits. Carriers. I have a weapons retention hook for a primary weapon system. I went ahead and just put that right on the belt. I've got a double mag pouch. Generally in the field, I only carry 2 extra pistol mags, if that, because I plan on doing all my work with my primary weapon. And if it gets down to it, you know, at least I've got something to work with, as well as my buddies probably have mags as well. And then the holster. Nothing fancy, just a Safariland, hooks right onto the belt, old school. And it's rigged for a light because in that environment, you're going to run into dark, cramped spaces. It gets hard to see very quickly, no matter what time of day or night it is. And I just like having the on-the-belt system for Maritime because, again, it keeps everything on my person. My water wings are strapped to my body. They're there if I need them. Hopefully I don't. But that's kind of the methodology behind it. I'm not going to go with the big bat belt. I don't want all that extra material weighing me down, bulking me up, etc. Because you're hooking, you're climbing, you know, it's a jungle gym out there. You know, there's no straight lines. You got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to get through, by, with, and through, up and over things, etc. And I just think it's a better way to do business when you're in that environment. These are the Maritime pants. They're quick dry or whatever. I got asked in the comments on another video what the brand was. I had no idea, but I fished these things out and it just says Blue Water Defense Inc. And I have no idea who they are. It's probably just a generic name made up by one of the bigger companies, but you know, that's just a guess. So moving right along, range belts, you know, it's not actually a tactical environment, just a training environment. You might be teaching somebody the very beginner basics. You might be teaching, you know, CQB on nods, you know, it doesn't matter. But as far as on a range belt, I still want my medical gear. This belt in particular is made by Ronin. It was issued to me. They come with these inner belts that go right on the pants, just like a regular belt. And I highly recommend them. They're great. They're really great. They've got the Cobra belt buckle. This one's a little bit older generation. I've had it for a few years, but for teaching purposes, and I could get away with using this for more real world application, I've got 4 mag pouches so that I can run lots of different mags, empty mags, a mag with 1 round in them, full mags, etc., for different drills, doing demos. And they are kind of a one-size-fits-all. We call them the tacos. And that's great because Glock mags are a lot bigger than standard steel mags. They're fatter because they're made out of plastic. And then if you're running maybe an HK45, I would also run this setup. The holsters just clip in and out on the giant Fast Techs from Safariland. These things are awesome. This is a Glock 19 holster, but I could throw that HK45 in, called the Mark 24. I can run those larger mags. I can run the Glock mags, and that's really what I use this belt for. I did use it for end user purposes overseas, but I kept it configured for the range teaching because I was doing a lot of that anyway. It's got a dump pouch on here. This one's made by Granite Gear Tactical. They're a mountain climbing company, but they decided to get all tactical. It's an okay dump pouch for what it is. A little bulky for the size, but that's okay. This one's in the AOR 2. Got the AOR 1 on a different belt. Of course, I've got that blowout kit, and I have a tourniquet on the right side, far enough back so that it doesn't impede my holster draw. I try to never ever have anything over on the holster side of the belt because I don't want anything to impede or slow down my ability to transition and deploy a secondary weapon system. Your secondary is basically your reserve parachute. And then I have a Leatherman on here as well, just for all the standard utilitarian purposes. I don't always run that kind of stuff on the belt, but sometimes I do. This is the old belt. I just brought it out just to check it out. Very old, used it in the 2000s. But back in those days, I had to carry a lot of stuff, so I just had these general purpose machine gun pouches on there. And I would run this for any number of reasons. Oftentimes I would keep my assaulter stuff on here, flashbangs, etc., because, maybe I was running a machine gun and my upper torso was, filled up with belts of ammo. So I would go a little bit harder, a little bit heavier on the belt because, well, frankly, I had to. This one's got a triple mag pouch because I did use it for the range. And it just kind of has an old school SIG holster, no big deal. But, for kind of the end user, on deployment, you're inevitably going to have to bring more stuff than maybe you trained with because it's just a requirement for contingencies, etc., for what can actually happen in real life. So I would have a belt that, was able to accommodate that with extra cargo capacity. Now, getting back to on the pants, I would generally run a rigger's belt. Truth be told, I was never a huge fan of the cowboy big leather belts, though they were quite in fashion for quite a while. I did, I had this one, maybe some other ones that I'd wear from time to time. But this belt works great in that business casual REI operator look. When you're in a, at best, semi-permissive environment, you're trying to look good, maybe you're working around the State Department, so to speak. You're just transporting people through hostile areas and you need to look the part. You need to look professional. Throwing a belt like this onto whatever brand REI fits your fancy definitely worked. On the belt, I would run, leather or plastic holster with a double mag pouch. If need be, I could put other things on there. For instance, primary weapon on belt magazine pouches. These are made of Kydex. And I was never a big fan of these when in full regalia. But if you find yourself in that borderline semi-permissive, whatever environment, maybe you don't want to have a ton of gear on. Maybe the rest of your mags, your traditional second line gear that you carry on your torso is in a backpack in the vehicle, or it's close by. You'll have your primary weapon system, and maybe just having one extra magazine for that is a good idea until you can get back to, the vehicle. Again, it's all situation dependent. If you are expecting contact or, there's going to be a problem, obviously you're going to be fully kitted up the whole time. But I found myself in these probably not, don't worry about it, but still bring everything situations in the more recent Iraq and then other countries where there were conflicts going on, but we were not 100% engaged in a direct action capability like say we were in Iraq or Afghanistan. So in those situations, I would run single mag pouches. This is a 7.62 for, whatever battle rifle, sniper rifle configuration that I would run, because that was a job of mine. And then this is just a standard AR 5.56. Again, running easy to get on, easy to get off. Pistol mag pouches, these are singles, but you could run them together if you wanted to. I had them in tan, I had them in black. These are just two that I grabbed. And then in a land warfare situation where you're way out in the wilderness, there's a lot of terrain, you're doing a lot of hiking, I definitely wanted to have a minimal amount of equipment on my hips. I hate having stuff in my cargo pockets, on my hips, on my lower body, because that's what I'm using to try to walk around. And you already have all this other equipment, a backpack full of God knows what. Maybe you're running a dual hat. You've got your standard primary weapon system with a few mags, and then you have your full sniper suite, 300 Win Mag or whatever it is in a backpack. You don't want anything chafing or rubbing around. So getting that stuff up high, getting things off of your belt line, off of your hips, for me was huge, because I probably still have scarring from having to figure that out the hard way. So anytime I don't need the full battle rattle, the full regalia, I'm not going to use it, because it's uncomfortable and it wears you down. And that's something you do not want to have happen. Knives, sometimes I would run the fixed blades, like for instance, this one specifically, tucked away inside the plate carrier. I've talked about that before, but other times I just run it on the belt, because I don't feel like I needed it that fast, or I wasn't running a traditional plate carrier. Maybe I was running a low visibility plate carrier. For instance, that's a good reason why I would have one of these on my belt, because my chest rig that had the rest of my ammo, etc., wasn't always on my person. But this one in land warfare, MAROP setting, I would definitely run. This is a Black Hawk sheath. Got just a standard seal pup. Everybody has one, even Dave now. And, they're just good little knives. It's a generic sheath. It fits any knife about that size. And it's got a mag pouch that I use for a Leatherman, because if you don't have one, you're going to need one. And then you fall into that tried and true predicament, that old school of, hey man, who's got a Leatherman? Might as well be the guy. And I would run that generally on my left side, just right on the belt, like so. If I wanted to put a shoelace or something through there to keep it down on my leg, I would. But honestly, I hardly ever did that, because it's just not something I was that worried about. And then keeping your blade on your left support side, for me, is also a good idea, because if you're rappelling, your line's going off the strong side of your body, your brake hand is over here. You don't want to take a chance of the rope burning through your sheath and getting cut. We have a video of a guy dying that way. And it happened not long before I went through training, so it was fresh in everybody's mind. And it was just beat into me, mandated to me from that moment forward, going through initial training, that if I was gonna have my knife on my person, I would keep it on my left side, because you never know when you're gonna be rappelling. It just kind of pops up from time to time. And that's not something you wanna be forgetting about. So I did run both of these on the belt like that, off and on, just depended on the situation, where I was and what I thought I was gonna need. And then dump pouches. Dump pouches are great. They're great for dumping mags into. They're great for dumping SSE or evidence, intelligence that you find on target. Just having one of these rolled up on the belt is great. And this is actually a fairly large one. I use this one in training, especially when using larger mags like 7.62. And I would just go ahead and run this right on my pants, if need be, or I could stick it on one of the gun belts, but this was generally the one that I would run directly on my person on a traditional belt through the pants. Helo lanyards. We've talked about helo lanyards in the past. These things are very important, and if you're gonna run one, you need a proper anchor point. So a tactical belt that's actually designed to be used in real world operations is gonna have an anchor point. Here's one on the rigger's belt. Right here, this attachment piece, you go ahead and you clip this side of it right into the rigger's belt. And then this large, easier to use side is what you clip onto the aircraft or whatever it is. This one is a lot harder to get off, And in the event you fall, you've got your body weight keeping this thing taut, someone's laying over the top of it, you can simply trace your body down, find this, and it pops right off. And these are very, very good. They're very, very effective life-saving equipment, but if you can't trace your body and get this thing off in emergency, this life-saving equipment ends up being what kills you. So it's important to have a good anchor point. The Ronin belt has one right here. I've got several of these belts. They all have it. And this is where I would attach it if need be, if I was running a more traditional battle belt, as they're called. So moving on, guys, keeping with that minimalist idea, you know, I have this Blue Force gear belt set up. This is currently what I use. It's kind of a next generation step up from the previous stuff. It's got a pretty cool inner belt that can be worn right on the pants, and it works great as a regular belt. And I could attach this stuff onto it fairly easily. It's not as thick, robust, and rigid as the old school ones. And honestly, this would work as well, but I mean, it's just a piece of Velcro stitched onto a piece of fabric, almost like a cargo strap. This one's more of a purpose-built belt, and I could run this with this stuff on it, easily take it off, and then attach, you know, the more purpose-built, you know, again, battle belt, bat belt, whatever you want to call it. And this one is pretty minimalist. I've got the 2 mags, I've got a very small dump pouch, again, my blowout kit, and just the pistol with holster. And that's it. Again, this is designed to be streamlined, not as streamlined as going directly onto the pants, but you know, we're splitting hairs here. And the rest of my equipment will be stuffed away in pockets or up in my primary play carrier kit or whatever configuration I'm running. But again, just different options for different types of operations. It's important to not get too stuck on one thing. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do this, and I was afforded the opportunity for many, many years to explore and try things out. And I like to switch it up, you know, especially if you're going to be wearing this stuff for prolonged periods of time. You know, if you're just going out to the range to have fun or to train hard for a few hours and you're focusing in on specific skill sets, then yeah, maybe going a little bit more deliberate, maybe not being worried about bulk or excess weight is that big of a deal. But man, if you're gonna be wearing this stuff for days on end, weeks, months at a time, you know, maybe you're doing a career in the trenches for years and years, you know, figuring out what exactly works for you, your body type, your mission, your responsibilities on that mission is something that I think you should definitely think long and hard about. Because once you're out there and you've got what you got. All right, and then finally, you know, we have our actual like true low vis loadout. And, you know, obviously here in the States, we have our everyday carry, and that can vary, and it should, depending on what you're doing, where you're going. I tend to be very minimalist when it comes to this because I just don't go places where I feel like I'm gonna need to do a bunch of mag reloads or need a full-size gun or carry a full blowout kit. But, you know, I am prepared for that stuff. I do keep things in my vehicle. I am able to add and subtract in my everyday carry as needed. So just for today, this is similar to what I would even wear overseas. I've been to some countries where, you know, we were not there to do anything kinetic or have a physical altercation type problem with enemy forces. We were just, you know, there for whatever other reason. And you would run as low vis as humanly possible. These places are often hot. I've come to a realization during my career that angry people live in hot places. The colder it gets, the more mild and chill people are. So generally speaking, I wasn't carrying guns in cold places. But that being said, you know, I've got a X macro here. It's in the appendix configuration right now. I really like these type of holsters. This one's made by Vetter. They're a big supporter of the channel, and you can check them out in the description below. But, you know, yeah, this one's orange and honeycomb because, you know, I'm here in the States and not that worried about it, but it's a great holster. And holds the gun firmly. I like having the tight, you know, tough to get on, tough to get off metal clips. You know, in a panic situation, you're gonna be reaching for this thing as fast and hard as you ever have been or ever have in your life. And it really makes a difference in those situations. You know, if you are carrying EDC, I highly suggest get to the range and really put your equipment through the paces. You know, don't go too fast. We don't want to create any dangerous situations, but you definitely want to make sure your equipment works. So by having this type of holster, I can keep it up front in the appendix where it is much easier to conceal. You know, this isn't the smallest carry gun in the world, but I can easily switch it over and put it back here at that 3:30, 4 o'clock position, which is where I generally prefer. But being able to switch back and forth is great depending on the situation, and I can do it on the go out in the field, so to speak. Obviously, not going anywhere without a blade for cutting apples and opening Amazon packages. Very important. I also, if we're going to step things up, having a extra reload mag is something that I believe in. Damn near all stoppages are magazine related, and just being able to switch out to a fresh one, or maybe the situation surprised you and that lightning bolt of adrenaline caused you to maybe burn through that first mag a little more liberally than you normally would have. You've got a freshie to reload, get off target, and get safe. I run the NeoMag. These things are great. They're a magnet that attaches to the magazine and it turns it into a pocket knife right there in your pocket. I run my ammunition facing my primary weapon holding side, and I generally just carry the one. If I'm going somewhere or doing something, past or present, and we felt like we needed a little bit of med gear and maybe a backpack wasn't an option, then you just got to go with what you can fit. So, in these pants, and I did wear these, they're just like cool brown pants, maybe they're tactical, maybe they're not. Again, it's all about that REI flavor when it comes to that type of mission set. In these pockets, I could stick a tourniquet, as well as a piece of combat gauze for wound packing. Just a little bit to buy you time before you can get to a higher level of care. Like that other guy who does have the backpack with the real med gear in it, or maybe it's stashed in a vehicle, or however it is you're running, guys. Low visibility operations, contact is planned for, but it is not intended, if that makes sense. So you got to do more with less, and hopefully nothing bad happens. So again, this is just a little bit of the how and why. We get a lot of questions on our War Room community about how we run our gear, why we run our gear, and give recommendations. So for those of you that haven't checked out the War Room yet, this is just a quick, easy, generic sampling of how I set up my belts and why for what different purposes and applications. All right, I hope this helps. If you have questions, go ahead and hit us up in the comments. If you've got something to add, or you run your battle belt in a different way for whatever reason, it's all about learning from each other here at Tactical Hyve, man. It's a community, and I'm still learning, I'm still trying new things, and it's one of my favorite parts of this whole thing we're doing here. So, hope you liked the video. Go ahead and give it a like if you haven't done so. Subscribe, hit that bell. We put out a lot of content, and I'll see you next time. This is Dorr, out.